All right, welcome into the Bite Meat podcast. So you say you want to be a competitive pitmaster. All right, we'll see how that goes. It takes a lot. It takes an awful lot. And we thought that with one of the biggest rodeo cook-offs, barbecue cook-offs in the world coming up, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo barbecue cook-off, it would be great to get a pitmaster on here. Just a little note or two before we get started with Tyler Gurney, who has been doing this for a while, and we're going to get everything you need to know about what it takes to be in the Houston Rodeo Cookoff. It's going to be fascinating. It's more than you probably think, and maybe it'll inspire you. Maybe you'll want to get on a team. We will be out there during the barbecue cook-off, which is officially February 27th through the 29th, I believe. But it takes a lot more than just those 3 days. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, we always say start with Podbean so you can subscribe there and get literally every Bite Meat podcast that we've ever done right there. But you can also get it at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else there is. So I mentioned his name, Tyler Gurney, who you may have heard and probably have heard quite a bit with the smoking hot tips that we do toward the back end of our podcast every week. But Tyler is going all in. He's done it before in terms of major cook-offs. So we thought, let's shed a little light on that. And Tyler, appreciate you joining us. But what I really wanted to get to is here we are, late January, getting into the 1st of February, literally about a month away from the actual cook-off. Are you doing anything right now? Does it start this early? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've literally got a drum smoker going right now. I'm doing a practice round of ribs and chicken tonight.
Okay.
For me, quite frankly, it doesn't stop year round, especially for HLSR. It's one of the biggest cook-offs in the world. But that being said, right now it's literally practice cooks every day. As much as I can pretty much afford to put on the tank.
Yeah.
Right now it's mainly chicken and ribs, but I'll probably do 4 to 8 practice rounds of briskets.
Let's talk about first the cook-off itself. We always talk about one of the biggest in the world. What are the ones that you as a pitmaster sort of circle as like that's one that we've got to be in and hopefully do well in?
So I kind of call it the triple crown of barbecue, kind of in terms of racing. You've got the Jack Daniel's barbecue competition of Nashville. That's, from my knowledge, it's invitation only. And then you've also got Memphis in May, another huge one. And then you've got the HLSR. And I've been fortunate enough to get involved in that competition the past few years just by meeting the right people. And then kind of working my way up to one of the head cooks by competition team.
Yeah, and I want to get into that.
It's been a really kind of interesting process.
So how many teams are we looking at HLSR? And these are not fly-by-night teams either.
Yeah, from my knowledge, and I'm just going off the top of my head, I think a year or two ago, it was 257. I think this year it might be 276, but it's pretty much as many teams as they can fit at the rodeo. So I will say that the Houston HLSR is a little bit of if you know people and you're able to get involved from a knowing people in Houston base, you're able to get involved in that community a lot faster. But you are able to win your way into that competition as well. So you've got teams from around the world. You've got backyard pitmasters who have won their way into that comp, competing against guys who, quite frankly, have a huge amount of funding or a huge amount of team promotion or membership. It really is kind of wild. You've got a guy on a Weber Smoky Mountain versus a guy with a $50,000 barbecue pit.
That's the best part of it, and they all have an equal chance in terms of judging and such. So maybe should have done this a second ago to start the show, but give us your background and how you got in. I know you've been doing this for a while and what you do, you're on a regular basis, your day job, so to speak.
Yeah, so background for me, I went to University of Virginia back in the old, I guess, north as far as Texas is concerned. But I always thought I wanted to go into fine dining as a chef. Got out of restaurants for a few years, and then got back into outdoor kitchens and cooking with Texas Star Grill Shop, specifically with barbecue.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a totally different concept because it's a production based mentality. Yeah, with a finesse and light touch that you get with fine dining. And for me, it's been absolutely huge transitioning into that. And right now, I left my full-time job at Texas Star Grill Shop. I used to be a sales director over there. And now I'm a full-time pitmaster at Pinkerton's Barbecue.
Yeah.
And I'm a part-time sales guy over at Texas Star Grill Shop. So I get the best of both worlds. Like, for example, today, started my day at around 5 a.m. Started pumping out all this barbecue for today's service, finishing things off. Then I come home, get to talk to people about outdoor kitchens and barbecue pits. And then I get to fire up a pit.
Yeah.
It's the 8th pit today that I fired up.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm working on ribs and chicken, and I get to talk to you about barbecue.
So what could be better than that?
Yeah.
What could be better than that? What about competitively, your background and how you got into the HLSR?
Yeah, so actually it was a little bit of a fluke. And I'm going to be honest with you, John. Before I moved down to Texas, I got on a dating app, and I met a girl and got involved with her family. And they were one of the original founders of the Houston Rodeo back in the day. And they got me involved with their rodeo team.
Oh, wow.
Over the past few years, I was kind of able to prove myself. And it's been a really humbling experience because to be part of something that is so instrumental to Houston, be something that has been going on for so many years, and be able to have such an instrumental part, let alone cooking and being in charge of the competition meet. It really is huge for me, and it feels like a real honor and privilege because a lot of people have lived in Houston their entire life haven't had that opportunity. So,
now, how about putting your team together? Now, well, first of all, what competitions you've? I know you've got some hardware. By the way, Doug Scheiding, who is a regular on this podcast, is going to be competing. We've had Grant Pinkerton on this podcast to talk about some of his techniques and tips and such. But now you are the lead pitmaster, which is the biggest responsibility and I guess the biggest glory if you win. How'd you get your team together? It has to be a real strategy there in terms of the proteins that they're putting on, their strengths, etc.
So I will say my number. I'd hope to say that my number one ingredient over the past few years has honestly being humble and working my way into this. And just having the opportunity to be able to be the guy that's doing this. But now that we're here, and I will say, so let's say 3 years ago, I got top 30 brisket at the HLSR. It was the first time that they really ever let me cook. Last year, we were very effective at the rodeo, top 50 team overall. And this year, I'm making most of the shots. So we're running custom drum hardware out there. We're running specific meats. We've got sponsors involved, which is going to eventually go under my kind of umbrella competition team. But this year for Cowboy Yacht Club, which is the team that I'm representing, they're actually the oldest and I think the only privately funded team left at the HLSR. Everything else is publicly funded.
Oh, wow. What about putting your team together, the strategy, now that you're the lead pitmaster?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's good.
Got a little distracted. But yeah, so strategy in terms of that is I've got the guys that I've been working with over the past few years. And quite frankly, it's a collaboration at this point online. Because you can't get everybody to cook together all the time. But what you can do is you can share recipes, you can share strategies, you can share videos with each other. You can take a look and say, hey, I changed this cook this time, and that's the difference between these ribs looking like this. So it's going to be a kind of collaborative workspace that we're working together to create a better product. At the end of the day, I'm kind of the general in charge, but I see it as a collaborative effort from everybody involved and kind of just being a Houston effort and push.
This is kind of a broad question, but just kind of paint a picture for our listeners, who I know many of them are going to be out at the barbecue cook-off. I will be out there at least one day, probably more. But what's it like? Like, how would you describe being on that end, on the other side of the table, and, sort of the intensity of the entire event? We get there and we eat barbecue and drink beer and dance to some country music or whatever, but that's not what's going on the other side. What is it like for the pitmasters and their teams?
So it's actually kind of funny, John. I recently wrote on my refrigerator as kind of a reminder every day. I think it was it's Tom Brady who's giving out the award right now. He gives out the LFG award. Which, for your listeners, I won't say it's too inappropriate. I'll let some people use their imagination.
Yeah.
But I wrote LMFG on my refrigerator on big letters, and I wrote rodeo. And I kind of look at it. I kind of look at it every day as inspiration, because quite frankly, it's a big deal for any pitmaster who can do some work out there. But on the same token, Thursday nights, just to give people a full rundown of how this event works is, Thursday is like a private night. It's mainly dinners among tents. I don't really recommend anybody spend their public money on Thursday night to go out to the Houston Rodeo. Friday and Saturday night, that's where there's public music. There's a lot of events. There's a lot of very interesting people. As long as you know somebody at a tent, you're able to get in. It is, at the end of the day, a little bit of a private party, which makes the HLSR a little bit of a different event. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just people cooking incredible barbecue, the sights, the smells, just going out there, experiencing the pits, everything. I mean, quite frankly, the first time I went out to the HLSR, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. Just walking by the Jack Daniels tent, walking by the United tent. People literally have a plane that's converted into a smoker. It's an absolute dream for anybody who cares about barbecue and who cares about good food.
What about the schedule? Like for you, once it's cook-off week, what is your schedule?
So I guess I had to take my hat off for that. It's kind of crazy. Right now, I'm practicing competition meets every day, but I will get out to the Houston Rodeo on Wednesday. And this is by choice. I'm sure there's a lot of people who do this smarter than me. They probably rent hotels. They probably sleep in their nice trailer pets. But for all intents and purposes, I'm Beverly Hillbillies right now. I'm a guy with a few drum smokers who's hungry and wants a taste. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I'm sleeping in two chairs pushed together. I know I brought this up to you the other day, but it was pretty crazy because it's kind of funny because you fall asleep for an hour or two. You're sleeping in a couple chairs, and then the porta potty companies come by, and they're sucking out the porta potties. So you wake up after you finally got an hour and a half of sleep.
Yeah.
For the guys who really, really are out there from start to finish, the head cooks, the head pitmasters, I mean, you're essentially there for 4 straight days, just making sure that everybody's happy and having a good time.
When do you so how much sleep do you get over those 4 days?
8 to 10 hours. I'm at Saturday. Saturday is the last day of the cook-off. I take Sunday and Monday off. I take Sunday and Monday off for just pure rest.
Sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So when do you start cooking? And you have, I'm guessing, obviously you have a team meeting with the officials and such.
Yeah, exactly. So on Friday, it should be, let's see. So yeah, Friday afternoon, they come by, they bring metal tags. So it's kind of interesting about the HLSR too, is they do different choices in terms of meat and competition. So a lot of competitions, they do brisket, pork butt, pork ribs, chicken. That I think is the standard KBC 4. In this case, you're doing ribs, chicken, brisket. That's it. They do an open competition as well and a Dutch oven. But they do cut out pork butt for the HLSR. And they come by with a judge. They take a metal tag and they cinch it through your meat to prove that this is your meat. And they have to see that tag attached to your meat when you slice it.
Okay.
To prove that it is
that meat.
What you brought in. Because otherwise, you know, I mean, I guess you can just go to anybody in town and just have them make you some food and re-eat it.
Yeah. And so do you have various briskets that you can try, or is it just one?
They give you 2 proteins per category.
Okay.
So 2 briskets, 2 chickens, 2 ribs. So you can bring as many as you want, but once they put those metal tags through that, you're done. You're done.
Yeah.
That's it.
And when do you start cooking for the competition? I know a lot of chants are cooking just for guests, etc., but for the competition.
Friday night, it's going to be competition night. Friday night around 10 o'clock, I've got my drum going for brisket, and everybody's having fun on Friday night. Everybody's listening to live music at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, hey, if you want to step aside, I'm doing something a little more serious right now.
Can you get out of the way, please?
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to be wild, because I've been, you know, obviously I've gone several years, and it's exactly what you said. You're like, hey, you know, fixing a plate of barbecue and music and all that. And then in the back, you see the pitmasters, because most all of these tents that people go to parties to, they're serious pitmasters trying to win an event. You know, so you just gotta just block it all out and just go. And then I'm guessing Friday night you don't get much sleep at all.
I don't get much sleep in general. I was gonna, and this is one story I love to tell people too, is I've gone through a huge transition, like in the quality of pets and what I'm cooking on versus the past 3 years. And 3 years ago, I'll never forget it. I was cooking this brisket, and it's one of the best brisket scores I've ever got. It was, I think, top 20 or top 30 at HLSR. And I've got this thing on a Pit Boss vertical pellet grill. And I'm watching, I've got a meter plugged into it, and I'm watching it wave 100 degrees in opposite directions. It's pouring down rain on the smoker. It's cold. It's not ideal conditions. Like, not ideal conditions, especially for a competition. And I'll tell this to anybody, is it doesn't matter what pit you're on. If you're able to render fat properly, season properly, you got a shot at winning the whole thing. I met a guy who told me that consistently in the past few years he's won chicken on an Old Smoky, which is a $40 or $50 smoker from a cabinet.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's what I do. So it doesn't matter whether it's the best smoker on the market. It doesn't matter whether you have an industrial smoker. If you want to go out there and cook, you want to try, you want to kind of play your metal, you can work your way into the HLSR for them.
Yeah. So with sourcing your proteins, getting back to they put those metal tags on your meats. How do you go about it? How has that changed? I'm guessing this is not all due respect because I love the place, but this is not just some grab it out of the bin at HEB type brisket.
No, absolutely not. If you want to have a chance of winning, especially with brisket, you want to grab something that's going to be Wagyu. Texas Star Grill Shop sells an absolutely fantastic Akaushi Wagyu, which is the red cow. I've used that for competition plenty of times. They also have access to black Wagyu cow from Snake River Farms. I've used that as well. Quite frankly, in RC Ranch, they've got the RC Ranch black Wagyu now. I haven't cooked with that as much. But any of those options, Wagyu, prime. For me, when it comes to competition, I cook competition brisket and I cook brisket for my friends and family two very different ways. Competition or brisket for friends and family, I want them to be able to eat 3 or 4 slices, really be able to get after it.
Yeah.
I will say with black Wagyu cows and specifically with super high-end Wagyu cows, if I'm cooking brisket, it's almost my friends and family are one bite and done.
Yeah.
Which for competition, fantastic. You want that flavor bomb. You want to punch in the mouth. Like you want to go after this Rocky style.
Yeah.
Like, but when you're just feeding friends and family, it's a totally different thing. So I actually daily think of brisket for friends and family and competition on 2 totally different ones.
I mean, it's one bite. It's one bite. After all this work, all the time you have planning, the test cooks, the sourcing, picking your right pit, getting the pit the way you want it, getting the fire and the smoke the way you want it, the heat, getting everything seasoned the way you want it. Come down to one bite for a judge. And how does that work? Is it it's in rounds? I know that. So how does it work? Once you get past that.
I have personally not. I'm not going to lie to you, John. I personally have not taken the judging contest or the judging class, even though it is on my radar and something to do as a competition cook. But yeah, quite frankly, you're getting a lot of people who took a class for 2 to 3 hours in the afternoon on a Saturday,
and then they're judging you,
and they're judging you.
So go ahead.
I'm not going to lie when I say that thinking about this on a daily basis on how to win a competition and how to curate all this is a little bit of it can drive you a little bit stir crazy, especially with you got a judge who's literally just had a 2 or 3 hour competition. Training.
Yeah. What about presentation at most competitions and at HLSR? Because that tends to be, well, it is a big part of the judging. Yeah,
absolutely. So you've got presentation, taste, and texture are going to be the 3 major ones. Taste and texture, pretty straightforward. There's a lot of kind of tips and tricks to use for increasing appearance, whether that's making your bird look shinier, whether that's making the brisket look like the fat's rendered a little bit more. There are tips that pitmasters pull out the back pocket, but at the end of the day, you cooked it perfectly. You don't need to pull those tips out of your back pocket.
Right. So you turn it in Saturday afternoon, I'm guessing, and then what?
There's different turn-in times. So on Saturday, I'm guessing here, but it's probably let's just say 11 for chicken, 12 for ribs, 1 for brisket.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be on Saturday. Later Saturday afternoon, if you are one of the people called to the stage as
Mm-hmm.
one of the top 3, you'll get somebody will come around and let you know.
Oh, good.
And they'll let you know to grab your flag, get ready to run around and
Yeah.
get all pumped up. But if you're not one of the top 3, then you don't find out for actually a few days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you just spent 4 days of your life being up for
And you're
4 straight
finding out
days,
on Tuesday or Wednesday.
and you find out on Monday morning or
Mm,
Tuesday, and you're just
yeah.
like, man, I was one of the top 50 cooks at the HLSR, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
kind of interesting.
That's wild. So, we talked about the planning and all that. What are you looking for when you're testing, like what you're doing right now, to produce that perfect bite with all three proteins that are in the competition?
Right now, I'm really focusing on crispiness of the chicken skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like a mad scientist on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking for a absolute beautiful glaze slash bite on the rib, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that I'm a little mad scientist obsessed about that right now. And then on the brisket, I am kind of constantly tweaking, especially because one thing I like to be very clear with people about competition is it's like, okay, I may work at Pinkerton's as a pitmaster, but I'm cooking, let's say 40 to
Mm-hmm.
90 prime briskets a day.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to competition, these black label, super expensive Wagyu briskets that you're looking for that flavor bomb, that's
Mm-hmm.
that super intense marbling. Those you can only, I mean, really, most people can only afford to cook so many of those a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I only get so many practice shots. So brisket for me is a little bit weirder because I'm playing with super high end quality meat
Mm-hmm.
that I have got to alter and be very, very careful with my alterations.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken and ribs, a little bit different. I can kind of get after that, take wildly different approaches, see what works, see what doesn't. But
Yeah.
with brisket, I'm a lot more careful.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned your pit. What are you using this year?
This year, so we've got an old hickory. It's a rotisserie pit.
Mm-hmm.
They're based out of Minnesota. Really, really nice pits. We've got that going. That's going to be our main wood burner, stick burner.
Mm-hmm.
We like it for rodeo because it takes up a little less space. Then
Mm-hmm.
for competition meat, and I think a lot of teams are going to agree with me here, is it's all about control. And if you have control,
Mm-hmm.
that's one less thing you have to worry about. So
Yeah.
for competition meat, I've got a brisket, got a rib, I got a chicken pit. And they're all drum smokers.
That's crazy. That's terrific, because you feel like you can focus on it a lot easier that way on the fewer meats that are in there and the heat and the temp, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about convection. So
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
um, having a $20,000 1,000-gallon offset smoker, that's not the most efficient machine.
Mm-hmm.
So apologize for nerding out with you on this.
No, I love it. I know
Uh,
our listeners will too.
but when you've got a
That's why they
simple machine,
listen.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've got a simple machine like a drum, and it's using simple physics, you've got 2 air intakes most of the time. That's got your draw pulling
Mm-hmm.
into the firebox and then pulling out. That's creating an insane amount of convection.
Mm-hmm.
So I've even cooked pork butts that some people would cook in 8 to 10 hours. I've cooked them at 400 with a heat deflector and a drum smoker, and had them finished at about the same time.
Oh, wow.
Because you're getting that intense convection, that intense swirling of the airflow in there. And that's just rendering that fat, that's rendering that intermuscular fat.
Yeah.
That's giving you an absolute fantastic product. So not necessarily a bigger pit is better than a efficient pit. And that's why you're going to find a lot of people cooking on drums at competitions recently.
Yeah. So in terms of the three meats that you'll be cooking, we went through like what they need to have, you know, the crispiness of the chicken skin, which by the way, I may want to get back to that because that's an ongoing question here. You know, the bite, the quality of everything. But you also, that's a consistent for everybody in every competition. You want it to look a certain way. At the same time, and this is what to me is the most difficult thing. You want it to look a certain way. The judges are trained a certain way to look for certain things. At the same time, you also want to stand out from the others. Like, what's that balance, and what helps you stand out?
Yeah, it's I lose sleep at night.
Because is it as simple as just that flavor profile, that taste has to hit that particular judge just right?
So, you know, what's interesting is our buddy Doug, who he's going to be cooking with, I think with, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think he's cooking with Wild Game Crew this year.
Yes,
but,
yes, he is.
He, absolute expert, one of the best pitmasters of all time in competition. And it was funny because I actually started beating him the first time I met him. And I learned, and I knew that he was one of the most accomplished competition guys ever. I started beating him up. I'm like, "Hey, Doug, like, what's your secret with chicken?" I'm like, "What's your secret with chicken?" He's like, "Tell me." And he's like, "Oh, I increased the heat." And I'm like, "That's not your secret with chicken, Doug. Come on. Come on, you got something else.
Give me the good stuff."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he actually gave me that baking powder tip that I think I threw out on the Bite Me podcast with the alkalinity.
Yeah.
Really nice touch with Pellet Grill smokers. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's really.
I can tell this is a hard question because it's like, how do I stand out and look like?
If I knew, I'd tell you. If I knew, I'd probably make a lot of money.
Yeah, but there is a certain amount of like all the planning, all the preparation, all the training, all the experience you have, and other pitmasters there, pretty much every pitmaster at the HLSR. It does come down to a certain amount of luck, right? I mean, it has to be that judge just hitting him or her just right.
There's a certain amount of luck to it, and that's something you have to keep in mind. But I don't know. At the same token, I also have the mentality of you put your reps in, and you put your time in, and you try and you get after it, and you know that produces results. And I've seen it over the past 3 years, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens this year.
And so I keep saying brisket, that's just the easy one. Let's say you take your brisket off. It's the one that you want of the two to be judged, and you bite into it and you taste it. What are you looking for there?
So ironically, when it comes to the brisket, John, I say Jesus take the wheel.
You don't taste it?
Hear me out. So what I do is I touch it, I wrap it based on the bark, I wrap it based on the bark development. I do a towel wrap. And this is one thing I'll tell everybody is I will tell you exactly how I do absolutely everything I do. And my response is good luck doing it exactly like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will tell you, I do a towel wrap, and on a black Wagyu brisket, it's going to be between. It's a touch game at this point, but I'm going to pull that brisket wrapped between 196 and probably 202, 203.
Mm-hmm.
But it's based off touch at that point for the fat burner. I will not open that brisket up. And this is why I say I just let Jesus take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Is I do not open that until it's time to cut.
Yeah.
I wrap it. I wrap it in a beach towel. Ideally, I'd have a Cambro or something where I'd hold it at 145 degrees. But I'm just, this is my 4th year effectively doing this, and it wasn't my full-time job, but now it's becoming one. But that being said, you let that brisket rest in there, and then you pull it out, and then you unwrap it, and you've got that tag on there, and you slice into it in front of the judges.
Mm-hmm.
It's really spiritual, especially when you see if you nail it and all that juice is just running out of it, and you're like, man, I could be dancing to that. Like it really is just a religious experience.
Yeah, I guess I should have brought that up earlier. The judges have to be there when you slice it, right? Or a judge?
Yes, for the HLSR specifically, a judge has to be there to witness you slice your competition.
Mm-hmm. And then they take it, and how much do they take of each protein?
So actually, after that, they'll watch you slice it, and then you walk your meat to the judges' tent.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your meat in a styrofoam container. In this case, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but it's 8 to 12 slices. But let's just say 8 slices of brisket lined up.
Consecutive?
Consecutive.
Yeah.
They don't really want.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want it lined up really beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
In a white styrofoam container on a little piece of aluminum foil. That's going to be what all your presentation parts are. We walk that up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's either this is another thing to keep in mind. It's either a 2-minute walk, a 30-second walk, or a 10-minute walk, depending on where you are at the HLSR.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're thinking about, how long is my food sitting in the container?
Mm-hmm.
When's it actually getting reviewed?
Do they try to do it right away?
I don't know. I haven't been one of the judges. I imagine.
So you mentioned, just for our listeners' sake, because this is always good stuff here, but the chicken, and you're working on the crispiness of the chicken, and you and I believe have done a smoking hot tip about this, but I mean, it has to, like, if you get a piece of chicken and the crispiness is not just right, and the bite does not just go directly through the skin and the meat, are you SOL? I mean, do you feel like that chicken isn't going to do it, or do they care more about certain tastes? I know they want the chicken to be binded onto the bird. I mean, the skin to be binded onto the bird. But what are your thoughts there, and how do you make it happen?
Quite frankly, if you don't nail, and this is one of the hardest things to do in barbecue, and one of the reasons I like doing this on a drum is because, like what I was saying before, it's the convection and the air that's pushing through it that gives you that crispy skin, and you can jack up a bird to 375, 400. And as long as you're paying attention to the internals, you're not going to burn the inside of the burn. You're just going to get an absolute beautiful crust on the skin. But that being said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of the hardest bites to do. If I screw up the skin on a chicken and the rest of the chicken itself internally is delicious, I'm gonna eat the chicken and not complain about it.
It's not gonna. You're not gonna be eating it with a trophy on your lap.
Yeah, was it delightful? Yeah, absolutely. It was great.
Did it win? No. It didn't make top 50. Didn't make top 20.
And I think that's the biggest thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Is people going into competition, and including myself, like people set expectations for this kind of thing. But if you go in just happy to just cook with your friends, family, cook great food, have a great time, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And I think, that partly plays in the results as well.
Yeah. Last thing for you, and then we're going to get to a smoking hot tip of the week with, I don't know, some dude named Tyler Gurney, but from Texas Star Grill Shop. But I know we're all competitive to various degrees. So I know there's a competitive side of you that has you doing this and doing it full time or soon to be, full time. But beyond just like I'm competitive, why is this so why is this your calling to be a competitive pitmaster?
Uh, Actually, that's kind of a cool question. When I got into, I thought I wanted to be a chef. So I actually had some health issues in high school where I couldn't walk for a few years and
Mm-hmm.
had some issues. And when I started feeling better health wise, I decided that I wanted to be a chef.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to kitchens, I'll never forget because I was working with one of the, we don't need to get into names or anything, but she, well-known chef, I was working for her back in Richmond, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, she, and this always struck with me. She was watching me play it and said, I got to work with you on your finesse game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
she's like, I got to work with you on your finesse game. Like, you need to be more finessed when you're plating and all this stuff. And it's something that it dug into me. I always just hyper focused on after that. And then I ended up quitting cooking
Mm-hmm.
and moving into sales and coming down to Texas. And I got into barbecue, and I wouldn't say that it's not a finesse game, but there's a lot of finesse to it.
Yeah.
But I was really able to hyper take that just little note that stuck in my head
Mm-hmm.
and apply it to aggressive seasoning, aggressive cooking with live fire, aggressive focusing on big cuts of meat.
Yeah.
And it was something that related to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing fine dining, I never got to see a lot of people's faces when they enjoyed my food. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I might have made chicken liver mousse
Yeah.
on this handmade special bread or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but I never get to see you enjoy it. And for me, barbecue is about people enjoying it,
Mm-hmm.
about people coming together, people working together to create something great. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really touched me. It's really brought me back into the cooking community. It was something I quite frankly never thought I'd do again professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And not only as a competition cook, but cooking full time Monday through Friday at Pinkertons and talking barbecue pits in the afternoon at Texas Star Grill Shop. It's been an incredible journey that I never thought I'd be on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a really special place to be.
Yeah, and you see the reaction, you see the faces of, oh my gosh, this is so good. When in a fine dining restaurant, once they say order, you say order up, it's gone. And you are very rarely get to go see people enjoying it, but you do hear, man, this has been fantastic. I know a lot of people are gonna enjoy the insight behind the scenes of being a competitive pit master. Good luck, man. I will be out there. I'm sure I'll be bugging you. Maybe do some YouTube videos for this channel, etc. But I hope it goes well. And hey, oh, by the way, you're gonna use a little OG sauce.
Yeah, hey, we absolutely do need some OG
We need a
sauce for these
win.
ribs.
We need a win.
Hey, you're on the team, John. You're already on the team.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll certainly claim it if you when you guys get up there.
Hey,
But
cheers to that.
yeah.
I'll bring you on stage out of the audience.
Oh
if we
my God,
make it.
that would be I would act like I actually did something. So let me know. I will be there, and that's Saturday evening. I guess is the top 3 presentation, and then you get the results later.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, good deal, man. Good luck. I know a lot of people are going to appreciate this. And right now, let's get to that smoking hot tip of the week. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. It's always good.